Someone recommended these pieces by Domenico Galli for me to explore. These are unaccompanied sonatas written in the 17th century and intended for the cello, as opposed to being intended for any bass instrument. It's always really interesting to take this older 17th century music that isn't performed as often and try to figure out what to make of it. Especially because there aren't a lot of recordings of these pieces. These aren't exactly household pieces of music that a lot of cellists know. Luckily, because the music from the 17th century for cello is very bass line oriented, if we're used to playing continuo and playing bass lines, that gives us a pretty good idea of how to go about our musical ideas. What I also found interesting and kind of challenging about this particular manuscript is that a lot of the movements don't even have tempo indications. So looking at some movements, I wasn't even sure if it was meant to be a largo or an allegro. But after a bit of experimenting, it becomes clear which really suits the piece more. An interesting thing to note about these sonatas by Galli is that he was actually intending for a different tuning of cello entirely. We know this because we do know that the pieces are for cello, but some of them go all the way down to a low B flat below our normal C string. The 17th century is an ambiguous time for cello music because it's the beginning of when cello music is even being written. There's a lot of ambiguity in tuning and clefs and also just consistency. I thought it would be fun for this video to show you the manuscript that I'm using so you can see where my jumping off point is. Let me know what you guys think of these sonatas or how they compare to some of the other 17th century unaccompanied works I've done, and if you'd like to hear any more of them. For those who are cellists or who study early music, I love hearing your repertoire suggestions. I've had a number of people send me sheet music, and it's been a great way for me to learn new music and also to share it with you guys. Thanks for watching. Leave your questions questions in the comments, let me know your suggestions, and if you want to help me out, you can become my supporter on Patreon.